Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another class guide for Lost Ark Western release. We're going through all 15 classes that are going to be available upon launch for Western Europe and North America. And what I'm doing with these is I'm not going to be going into advanced details. This guide will not be about what's meta, what abilities to use, how to modify them, what your tripods are, all that stuff, because honestly, when a game comes to a new region, I think the best thing you can do is just get in, pick a class you like, and play it, experience it, enjoy it, get to max rank, and then figure out what you're going to do. Don't worry so much about speed running or getting tier lists and things like that. So I'm not going to go through meta. And honestly, the meta between Russia, Japan, and Korea is already different, and I'm willing to bet that it's going to be different for Western Europe and for North America as well. So we'll get emergent gameplay, I'm sure, when the game gets in the hands of Western players. And we'll probably get new metas as well, so all that becomes irrelevant. What doesn't become irrelevant is what we're going to cover in this guide, which is how the class works, the game design, the mechanics, the gameplay, the decision making that goes into playing that class, and then what you can expect from the class in group play, and what you get out of the class as you go into the end game and start unlocking more in-depth modifiers and customizing systems for your class. But first, if you have any questions or comments for me, you'll find me live every day on twitch.tv/Drybear. Who knows? I might even be streaming right now. So let's jump into the Bard. The Bard is one of two support classes in the game. Technically, the Gun Lancer or Warlord can do shielding and stuff, and cleansing, which is super nice. But Bard and Paladin are typically viewed as pseudo support, quote unquote support. They are support when played at the highest level, but it's good to know that in Lost Ark, there aren't traditional roles. So when you go into group play in Lost Ark, you're not going to have a tank, some amount of DPS, and a healer. You just have people. Everyone goes in, everyone does damage, everyone attacks, everyone dodges mechanics, and it's more about being the best version of your class than it is about filling a specific role. However, Bard and Paladin kind of break that mold a little bit in that they have a little bit lower damage than every class in the game. So one of the details for Bard, as with Paladin, is you will not be doing as much damage as other classes in general. But to compensate for that, you have access to support abilities. So if you're the person that likes playing support, you like utility, you like healing in traditional MMOs, Bard or Paladin can somewhat fill that role for you, even though you don't really need a healer, right? 4 DPS classes can go in and clear all content. You don't need a healer, but the Bard kind of fills that role. So the way this works, just like the Paladin, you have your, let's just go through the very basics of the class. Your basic attack looks like this. Everything the Bard does is a little bit slow, but kind of finessey, and it has tons of chords and sounds. I think the visual effects are great. Personally, for me, I don't like hearing the sounds all the time, but it does kind of have that effect. For most classes, the basic attack is kind of irrelevant. You don't really have use cases for it. Some classes do, but it's not consistent across the game, so just keep that in mind. Next is the movement ability. The Bard has this, which is a super fast teleport on a long cooldown. 10 seconds, I believe, is the longest cooldown for any movement in the game, at least of the classes that we're getting in the West. So know that it's a much longer cooldown, but you have a lot of CC and healing and shielding in your kit. So having a longer cooldown on your movement gets counteracted by that. It's a medium distance dash on a fast pace with a long cooldown. So just keep that in mind, is that that's your movement ability. Every class has a different one. Now let's go over the identity of the class, which is essentially the passive or the core mechanic set that defines that class over all of the others. The Bard has this horde system that they can use to build up. You see these 3 little blue marks here. Those build up as you attack. So just like the Paladin, when you have none, you have to land attacks in order to build it up. You can see it building there. So as you're attacking and doing things, you'll be able to build that up. So even though you do have support style gameplay, you become a better support when you're attacking, dealing damage, and getting in the combat. This game is all about combat, and it honestly, it should be for how good the combat feels, but that's the core mechanic set for the Bard. As you attack, you'll fill up these chords. There's 3 discrete ones. When you get 1 full, you can spend it on 2 different abilities, which have different effects. The first is called Serenade of Valor. I'm on the Russian client right now with translations. It might be called something different when you play it on the Western release. But what this is it gives you a damage buff, and then everyone around you gets a damage buff based on how many chords you spend when you activate it. Super great buff. I mean, it goes up to 15% damage. A group-wide buff of that high damage is absolutely awesome and people will love you for it. And then the other option for you, if you get full chords, is you can use Serenade of Salvation, as it's called in the Russian client. This is a ground targeted heal. When you place it down, it will persist for a while and pulse healing. Now, healing is pretty hard to come by in this game. You can use potions. It's more like Monster Hunter in that you have to have your own supplies. You have to dodge mechanics properly and keep yourself alive. However, the Paladin and the Bard can heal, and this heal is super clutch. So again, just like the Paladin, if you want to feel like everyone, just want to be the one that saves the day, Bard has the ability to save the day more than probably any other class in the entire game, with clutch big burst heals, shields, and tons of buffs. So they're very much in that vein. And later on, and when we get into class engravings, we'll talk about how this can be made even better. But this is the best heal in the game, honestly. You can pulse in an area, everyone gets healed by it. It keeps pulsing damage, so as you can stand in an AoE and still get a hit while the Bard is healing you. And then there's an engraving later that makes it even better. So this is what Bard is about, kind of having this passive. But again, in order to activate this, you have to be attacking and dealing damage and using your abilities. So you're still going to be attacking and doing all that just to build it up, but you have the ability to put out some pretty strong healing, more than any other class in the game. It's why it lands you in that support slot. Abilities wise, it is a mage, which means it has a wide array of different abilities. It is a standard class in Lost Ark, which means it has 8 ability slots, and you have more than 8 in your spellbook, so you can kind of pick and choose and change how you want your abilities to look and what abilities you want to use, and kind of customize your playstyle that way. They all have different effects, and they have different talent trees as well, which change them pretty significantly. But this guide is going to be a basic overview, so we're not going to get into detail of how those work and what happens, that kind of thing. So that's going to be that. Let's talk about the awakening abilities, which are your 2 ultimate abilities with very long cooldowns. These can be used in PvP and PvE. The Bard has 2, every class in the game has 2, and you basically choose which one you want. You put it in your 1 awakening slot, and then on a very long cooldown, you can use your awakening as your ultimate. The Bard has 2 of them, and the first one is your kind of more typical support style ultimate, and it's lucky that you get this first, which is super great. So the way this is, I can show you really quick. You activate it after a delay, you slam down, and then you do a bunch of damage, and then you apply a shield plus a buff for everyone in the area. So you activate it, and then the radius comes there, and the damage absorbing spheres that go around you are absorbing based on your max HP. When you slam down, you deal damage. It's not an impressive amount of damage, but it is more than one of your abilities, so at least has that kind of bonus to it. And then it applies an effect on the target, which reduces attack speed, and then and movement speed as well. So you'll be able to kind of debuff the targets while also adding a shield to everyone that's on it. So you get a lot of bonus. So you shield everybody, you deal damage, and you debuff the enemy. So it's a nice, well-rounded support ultimate. You jump into the fray when everyone's fighting. If there's melee on a boss, you can do that. You put a big shield on everyone, and then obviously you can put your heal down, and everyone's gonna love you. And then you'll be able to kind of react to the fight that way. However, if you want to, you can use the other ultimate, which is called Oratorio in translation. No idea what they're going to call this in the Western release. But the way this works is you activate it, crazy effects, and it's like a pulsing. It does pulsing damage, then explodes, does more damage, and then when it hits a target, it debuffs the enemy target and makes it so crit hit is increased on that target for everyone attacking it. So again, it still has support-minded effects on it. You activate this, you do more damage than your other one, I believe, and then you debuff the target so that other people crit more often. It has crit hit resistance reduced. So you can make your teammates do more damage that way, which is pretty cool. Now, we've got all the basics here on how the abilities work, how the gameplay is, how the passive works into everything. Let's go over the last part for this guide, which is going to be the engravings. There are a lot of endgame systems that help you control how your character plays, what build you're going for, and all that. We're not going to get into any of those. However, I think from a basic standpoint, looking at the overview of a character, I do believe that it is important to pay attention to the class engravings, because you have engravings you can equip for your character. Based on how many of these little dots you have, you make the engraving stronger. And there is a long list of general engravings that every class has access to. They have various abilities. You can see it's a pretty long list here. And you can equip these in very different ways, and they have a wide set of skills. However, every class has access to 2 class engravings that are unique to that class and that class only. and they are generally very build defining. They can change how your character plays, and I want to include them in an overview guide because it may help you understand how that character is played at endgame. You won't have access to these till endgame anyway, but they do have a very big impact on your character. So the two that the Bard has are the Cantata of Valor, and it's just like the Paladin. There's going to be one that's more damage focused and one that's more support focused. So if the first one here, Cantata of Valor, when you have this engraving equipped, and it is a passive to have it permanently on all the time, Aria of Valor, which is this, your Serenade of Valor here, don't worry about the translations, increases your damage by 10% and your crit chance by 10%. So this, while you have this active, if you have that engraving equipped, which I don't right now, you activate this buff and it gives you the 15% plus the 10%. So you have 25% damage increase plus a 10% crit chance. So this is your damage Bard build. While you have this active and you're buffing yourself, you do crazy damage, more than usual. You still do less than other classes, but it does give you a big increase. Now, keep in mind, there is solo content in this game. So having a damage build is nice, though at endgame, changing builds can be a little cumbersome, but this is available if you want it. However, most bards will go for the support option for class engraving, which is going to be your urgent rescue. So remember that healing ability that you have, the Serenade of Salvation, that pulses percent HP for everyone around in the area. When you have this engraving, the effect also does another big burst of healing when it ends. So you already get, at max, you get 8%, 16 times, plus another 24% at the end of it. So if they're standing in it the whole time, they healed, and when it ends, it's another huge burst of healing, which makes your heal even better. You can combine it with your shields, your buffs, and all that kind of stuff. So it is usually the support style engraving that you pick. You can have both of these, but I think most people usually, for most classes, go with one of them. So that's going to do it for Bard. That's how Bard works. That's the mechanics, the gameplay, the decision-making, and what you have available in your toolkit. I'm not going to go over all the abilities or anything, but if you're wondering how the Bard fits into gameplay later on and how the inner workings of the class work before you get into the game and start experiencing for yourself, that's it. So we're going to close this one out and go to the next class. And if you're looking for more overall, you can find more information on my overview guide. But let's go to the next class. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.